Les Baum is right. Leslie.
Leslie. I don't know.
Okay, so you're gonna pick a color and go.
Red.
Red. And how old are you?
56.
56. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a cameraman. Freelance cameraman.
Freelance
jib
cameraman.
Operator.
What was it?
A jib operator.
Jib operator. What's the jib? Jib is the thing that moves the camera?
No, a jib, if you go to a concert or a sporting event, you see a long pole with a camera on one end.
Right.
And it's flying over the audience.
Yeah.
I'm the guy flying it. So part of my family were communists.
Gotcha.
So I grew up in a very heavily red diaper district thing, and I was very heavily into that movement at one point.
When were you?
During Vietnam. During the 60s.
And being heavily into it means like
I was in a Trotskyist
activist.
organization.
You were what?
I was in a Trotskyist organization. I was in Chicago in '68. I wouldn't say I fought the draft, but I had a fight with the draft.
And what were the basic principles that you guys were working towards?
Well, I mean, I guess at some point, revolution.
Right. Like overthrow the government?
Pretty embarrassing to think now, but I think the government was going to overthrow itself. It was more.
The government was going to overthrow itself. It was like, at that time, it was on it was the feeling it was ready to collapse, kind of thing.
I think I just had a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And I fucking loved it. Heard something.
Well, at that time, though, but that's like that was the feeling.
That was the yes, yeah. Sorry, slagging him.
Right. But without like the perspective, obviously that's kind of a little bit impossible, but that was the feeling, like it was ready to implode.
Because I grew up in that idea that this was going to happen. This is it's an inevitability anyway. It's inevitably going to happen. So, my family had that philosophy.
Right. And like a lot of people say, like communism is the ideal government. If you're talking about like distribution of wealth and things like that, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's
the most democratic or the most fair distribution.
I'm thinking of it in terms of like poverty and race, and if everyone has like the same distribution of resources, then some of those things don't become an issue. That's kind of is that along the lines of that thinking or no?
Wait a minute, I'm not sure I'm understanding it.
Like when you were saying like the racism issue that came along in the 50s.
Yeah. Well, before that.
Before that, yeah. I mean, but
America was founded on racism.
Civil rights movement.
Right.
So communism would be the answer because everyone would be treated equally.
Right.
And that's the rationale.
And nobody would be hurt. No one would be screwed over.
Right. Was there like an instant where it was like you just saw it for what it was? Or
kind of.
I mean,
no. It was actually, I started to see the organization what it was before I got into working on myself. I was at a meeting of the organization, and at that point, I didn't start smoking marijuana until I was 25. This was the 60s. I graduated in summer of love, so I was like really straight.
Right.
I go to this meeting and I see these people, and I'm just sitting there because I'm like maybe stoned or I had been stoned the night before. I'm like, these people are out of their fucking minds. These people are a fucking bummer. Oh my! You want these people to run the world? Can you imagine? And it just was clear as a bell.
Your parents left when you were 5, or?
My parents decided to get a divorce when I was 5. And so I guess you understand the abandonment thing. They said, listen, if your aunt doesn't take you, you're going to an orphanage.
Really?
If you act up, you probably will go to an orphanage. And it was kind of understood, like, don't act up. Don't ever say you're angry.
You go to your aunt?
Well, I went and lived with my aunt. Okay. My brother and I, she had 3 daughters. And it's like, you just know you don't want to act up. Because I saw myself as like the little rascals going to the workhouse, That was, I was like, fuck, So I just became very, you don't ever act out of line,
I think that's how I was. And then just like, internalized everything.
You become a good boy.
Yeah.
And then when I let go, I let go hard. I let go real hard.
Would one of those or something else be like the most important or the most impactful thing that's ever happened to you?
You mean that being abandoned?
I mean, I don't know.
Like
I'm just saying, those are 2.
I'd say pretty. I think that shaped both myself and my brother very heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of us had children.
Right.
I didn't get married until I was in my 40s.
Right.
he had 2 really, really bad marriages. I mean, it's not an accident. I don't think there's just, oh, gee, I wonder why did that happen. I think there's factors which you don't see till you're older. Perhaps you make those choices early on.
That's a good one right there for you.
Ta-da.